Welcome everyone to this new video segment on the book Shoeless, chapter 3, entitled Humility, Responsibility, and the Cross. It's very exciting to comment on this material that I wrote about a little while ago. And this video I want to focus on this relationship between theology of childhood and theology of adulthood. These are terms that I've come up with over the years, even if they're used by some other scholars here and there. I've never seen them used together. But this is something I notice in Christianity and Christian spirituality on the whole, that there seems to be an ongoing dialectical relationship between childhood and adulthood, and that there's a maturity of each and yet a difference between them. So it's a paradoxical unity within the human vocation to grow in the maturity of the religious potential of the child and the contemplative genius of the child that's there from the start, that's there in infancy, this notion of resting in the arms of Christ that St. Therese of Lisieux talks about, that we read in Psalm 131, like a weaned child in his mother's arms, so is my soul stilled within me. But then there's a theology of adulthood that we see, especially see St. Paul pushing towards, when he says things, when I was a child, I spoke like a child, thought like a child, acted like a child, but then when I became a man, I put childish things aside. And we see the accent within Judaism, on the whole, more so on responsibility, on law, this bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, becoming a son or daughter of the law, which requires growing older in years, and that movement toward motherhood and fatherhood through whatever one's state of life. So let me just say some more comments on what I'm calling in these German terms in this chapter 3 of Shoeless, Kindertheologie and Altertheologie, theology of childhood and theology of adulthood. So on page 30 of the book, talking about Kindertheologie, this theology of childhood is innate for the child. It's there with the child from the start, but the adult must observe the child and live into this contemplative genius of the child. So it's really interesting, this quote from Karl Rahner on page 31, where he writes that we do not lose childhood as that which recedes ever further into our past, that which remains behind as we advance forward in time, but rather we go towards it as that which has been achieved in time and redeemed forever in time. St. Irenaeus of Lyons has a beautiful quote that Jesus passed through all the stages of human growth and development. He became an infant for infants, a child for children, an adolescent for adolescents, a young man for young men, older man for older people. He passed through all the stages to redeem all the stages of human growth and development. And you could say along the way and in total. Rahner goes on to say, we only become the children whom we were because we gather up in time, and in this our childhood too, into our eternity. Very profound quote. And later on, Rahner says about childhood, this morning of childhood does not derive its life simply from the afternoon which follows, as we get older in adulthood. That's definitely a problem I had growing up. I thought that my identity was always in the future, like playing quarterback at the University of Notre Dame was me, and that was me when I was 12 years old and 14 years old, 16, 18, and yet I didn't always think about the present, let alone the fulfillment of a past, the goodness of a past fulfillment in childhood, and to try to live back into that more. Now as I'm older and learning more things, it's something I definitely work at. And there's a beautiful catechetical motto you may have heard of called Catechesis of the Good Shepherd. It's a Montessorian approach to Catholic children's faith formation, and this is how it works. It's the adult catechist is very much attuned to the child, constantly observing the child, and really letting the child lead the way in their contemplative approach to the mysteries of faith in this prepared environment called the atrium, with all these materials for them to work with and encounter in a very sacramental, liturgical way the mysteries of faith for catechesis. It's a tremendous model, I think, which goes very much right along with kinder theology and is really a trademark of Carmelite spirituality, thinking especially of like St. Therese of Lisieux, of the child Jesus, of the Holy Face, this kinder theology. Kinder theology is met with this alter theology, or theology of adulthood, as a dialectical pairing. And so page 32 of the book and following, I talk more about what is alter theology. Page 33 toward the bottom. This theology of adulthood, without disdaining the theology of childhood, values ethical maturity above the contemplative proclivity of the child. In contrast to the passive disposition of kinder theology, alter theology is intentional and active. Alter theology is rooted in aged responsibility for the other who faces me. So responsibility is the key word here, whereas like humility and love, more so contemplative love, are the key terms for the theology of childhood. This theology of adulthood is characterized by charismatic proclamation and the desacralization of the idolatrous tendencies of affectivity. This theology of adulthood moves according to rigorous reason rather than intoxicating emotion. It fixates on speech, word, text, and testimony. Instead of counting its words, it multiplies them, which I'm trying not to do in this video. So overall, I argue that for Carmelite spirituality, there's meant to be a dialectical complementarity between this theology of childhood and this theology of adulthood. Both things together, kind of back and forth. And it's very clearly a Catholic understanding of things, not the one or the other, mutually exclusive kind of idea, not just this either or, but we see a dialectical pairing, a paradoxical unity between childhood and adulthood in Christian discipleship. If this were not the case, we would not have infant baptism, for example, but we do. And the rite of infant baptism showcases both this genius of the child that manifests all of our radical dependency on God the Father, and in that the sacrament works from the pure absolute initiative of God to us. It's not so much something we choose for ourselves as it's given in advance. St. Augustine talks about the prevenient grace that comes to us in advance and enables all of our choosing to follow. But at the same time, in the rite of infant baptism, you have the adults present, the parents, the godparents, the community, many adults in the community, as well as children, and everyone professing the faith together, promising to raise this child within the communion of faith. So there's so much more to talk about. This whole section on Behold the Beautiful Cross of Wood, the evangelical counsels of poverty, chastity, and obedience. But I'll leave it to you to read the pages and and see what you think. So be sure the discussion board will allow you to talk about your thoughts, your takeaways from this chapter 3 of Shoeless. Thanks so much. Look forward to reading them.